Kiss Army, do you guys think the whole doppelganger Kiss band member thing came from Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park? I mean, that's what happens in that movie, and that's what happened in real life. Like how we have Eric and Tommy as the fake Catman and fake Spaceman. Did they get that idea from Phantom of the Park? It's like mind-blowing once you think about that. Not only did they take inspiration from all the stuff that they did in the 70s and the albums, but also the movie too. And it's interesting because when Kiss are captured in that cage by Devero, they're talking about how they're not the real Kiss, they're imposters, and we need to defeat them and show the world the real Kiss. Like when Paul gets on stage after they fight them and he's like, "You ready for the real Kiss?" And everyone's like, "Yeah!" And it's like, now Paul and Gene are like Devero. Now they've taken his plan. It's like the polar opposite. It's like Paul and Gene became Abner Devero. They became the villain from Phantom of the Park. Like 20 years later, they became him. Everything they fought against him in the movie about how they're not the real Kiss, they're imposters, how could you do this? The Catman and Spaceman, they're not the real Kiss. And it's like, you guys did the same exact thing that your villain did in your movie. Do Paul and Gene not realize the massive irony that this has become for Kisstory? Or did they look back at Phantom of the Park and then think that was a good idea? I mean, Kiss are brilliant with how they're able to lie to the fans and keep the lie going, but are they evil masterminds like Devero? But you know, when you think about it, when you remember the ending of Phantom of the Park, Devero wasn't really evil. He was like misunderstood, and he became corrupted by his own obsessions. Kind of like Gene and Paul, right? It's like insane, like how much of Gene and Paul became just like Devero. Devereau's whole plan was to trick the people into thinking it really was Kiss. That's exactly what Gene and Paul have done. Fascinating, isn't it, Kiss Army? I want to talk about this whole Kiss avatar thing. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm actually not totally against it. It's not as stupid as I first thought it was. The longer I thought about it, it might work for Kiss because Kiss present themselves as superheroes, and they always have with the comics, everything. And Kiss Meets the Phantom. It kind of makes more sense to do this for a band that has superpowers than, say, ABBA when they did it. It's fascinating because this is something Abner Devero would come up with. Like, if Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park came out today, would this be what he would use to make the fake Kiss? Just put computer holograms out there in front of the crowd and say they're the real Kiss, while the real Kiss are trapped in a cage? It's like the technology now is different from the 70s, so this like whole scheme pretending Kiss are really there when they're really not, it's just a computer or a robot, that's something Abner Devero would come up with also. The whole Avatar Kiss thing, I mean, it's an idea they're taking from ABBA, of course. However, did they also think of Phantom of the Park when they came up with the Avatar Kiss idea? Because it just reminds you of like the doppelganger Kiss band members on stage in Phantom of the Park. Because they're not the real Kiss, and they're robots, but this time it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be, you know, a hologram show of Avatar Kiss, and they're not the real Kiss. I mean, it's a computer-generated thing. So this idea was already done in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park in 1978. They already did this idea in a movie, but now the movie is real? Interesting. The idea that Kiss's arch nemesis was the inspiration for the demise of Kiss as having integrity as a band for the future, it's just ironic. I mean, did Kiss become this villain? Did they lose their minds like Abner Devero? Was it to always be? Was this why Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park came out the way it did? Was it like showing what the future was going to be, and Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park was like testing this idea to the Kiss Army? But of course, in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, the audience hate the new Kiss because they're playing Rip and Destroy and they boo them. But the longer they still keep playing, then the crowd starts chanting, "Rip, rip, rip and destroy, rip and destroy." So now the crowd got into it. So the crowd hated it at first, like how everyone was so upset when Peter Criss and Ace Frehley were replaced with Tommy and Eric. But now it's different. You notice as time has gone by, like all the Kiss fans that were angry about it, like not all of them, but a lot of them are like, yeah, Well, it's all right. I mean, Tommy and Eric have been there for a long time, so why stay this angry about it for this long? It's like won some Kiss fans over. So just like in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, it won the crowd over. First they hated it, and then the more you keep pushing something on to the public, eventually they'll accept it and maybe even like it. Yeah, I don't know. Kiss became a monster, and I don't mean their final album. But Kiss became a monster of a brand. Like the fantasy and the vision and the dreams of Gene and Paul and Peter and Ace, it just went to their heads too much. And now they've become like that mad scientist in that fucking movie. Great actor who played Abner Devero, by the way. Great actor. I still love Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Yeah. I just... After the whole final show, it started making me think about all these things, like in Phantom of the Park. All this stuff just came flooding into my mind for some reason. I mean, I know I sound contradictory because earlier I said that Gene and Paul don't really care about the fans and they lie to them. I do think now Gene and Paul do care about the fans, but I think there was a window of time where they didn't, and they took advantage of the fans. But now, like when they started out, they cared about the fans. Then there was like a whole big window of time, I would say 80s, maybe 90s, maybe early 2000s. I don't think they cared about the fans. But then, like now that they're older, it's like history is repeating itself. Now Gene and Paul care about the fans. After all this time, you know, they're older now, and now they're getting teary-eyed because it's the end of Kiss. And now they're realizing, wow, even though we felt betrayed by the fans because they didn't come to some concerts, or they didn't like this decision or that decision, or our albums like Revenge didn't sell enough, even though all that shit happened and all the quarrels with the fans and everything, they now in their old age, by the end, now they realize, oh wow, even though all that bullshit happened, they still stuck with us. So, like, now they care about the fans again. So I do think they care about the fans, but I do think they do things to lie to the fans. Like, I notice how, I don't know, it does kind of seem like they're still trying to trick people into thinking that Tommy and Eric are really Peter and Ace, because they don't address Peter and Ace during the final concert. One of the newspapers, when it was called Kiss Day, it had a photograph of Gene, Paul, Peter, and Ace. But then another newspaper in the city during this Kiss weekend, it had a picture of Tommy and Eric with Gene and Paul. It seems like they're still trying to trick people who don't know that that's not Peter and Ace. It seems like they're still trying to, like, pretend like they are. And I don't want this video to go on for an eternity, but just my little 2 cents about Tommy and Eric. I think it's a really scummy thing for them to have wore their makeup all these years. I understand, I respect that Tommy loved Kiss. Same thing with Eric. I respect them for that because I love Kiss and, you know, we're the Kiss Army. But I don't respect them as human beings as a whole because even though they're dedicated to Kiss, and they were, that's still disrespectful to Peter and Ace. It's still a scummy thing to do, to wear their makeup, because it's not their makeup. And what they should have done was, like the whole, like Tommy having this attitude he always had where he's like, well, I'm just happy to be here, you know, I'm just happy to be in Kiss. And it's like, dude, like, it's more than just you, like, being happy to be in Kiss. Like, you have to give a shit about who came before you, and respect who came before you. You wearing the makeup is not showing respect to them. So you're contradicting yourself. Like, it's not just about you and your desire to be in Kiss. Kiss is a band that has a long legacy, and there was people before you, like Ace, who was already there being the spaceman character. So you can't just think about yourself. That's selfish, and that's bullshit. Same thing with Eric. And Eric should know better, because he was already in the band. He already had, like, a small window of time when he was in Kiss, and he did Revenge and Carnival of Souls, and it did come out later. He should know better also, Eric, because he was there already. But once again, I mean, I don't know if Eric really feels the same way about this that Tommy does, but they're way too much of, like, yes men to Gene and Paul. Like, they're always like, well, we're just happy to be here. They always said that all the time. It's like, guys, you can't just be like it's Tommy and Eric all these years, they're kind of like robots. They're kind of like the robots in Phantom of the Park. They were robots created by Gene and Paul, who are now Abner Devero, who was the villain of Phantom of the Park. History truly is repeating itself over and over and over again. History is repeating itself over and over and over again. When Tommy and Eric joined the band, what they should have done, and I never heard any other Kiss fan talk about this in a video, so I'm going to do it, because I'm fucking brilliant. What they should have done was they could have had a little bit of essence of the costume design from Ace and Peter. A little bit of stuff from what they had. Like maybe the colors, and like a little bit of cat thing on his shirt or whatever, and a little bit of something for, Tommy's character. But don't call them the Spaceman and the Catman. And like, the fact that they gave them literally the same exact makeup, face paint makeup, that's horse shit. That's cat shit. It pisses me off, and I'm not the only one, but that's what they should have done. Like, they should have had their own characters. You still could have had the essence, and you could have kept a little bit of the designs from Peter and Ace, so that it doesn't feel like super foreign to Kiss fans. It's kind of like their replacement of Ace and Peter without really replacing them. But that's not what they did. And that was shitty that they did that. And you know what should have happened? As soon as that shit happened, like when Peter left in the early 2000s and Ace left, when this first began, the crowd should have went, boo, boo. The crowd should have booed, and they should have said, we want Ace, we want Ace, we want Ace. Boo, we want Peter, we want Peter, we want Peter, we want Peter. That's what the Kiss Army should have done at the concerts. And then after the concerts, after all the boos, Peter and Gene would have said to each other, and you can see it, like in your mind, like Gene's like, Paul, we got to do something about this. It's not working. And Paul's going to be like, oh shit, yeah, well, let's try to get Ace and Peter back, maybe, again. And then Peter and Gene would be forced to pay them more money that they already deserved. Maybe not that they deserved all the money that Gene and Paul were getting, but they deserved more money than what they were getting. So then they would have paid them more, and then they would have came back and would have been different. But I don't know why the Kiss Army didn't do that. I think what they first did was, and I can't remember this, they may have replaced Peter first with Eric, and since he's in the back, with the drums and everything, most of the audience didn't even realize that it wasn't Peter anymore. So they tricked people first with Peter, and since he's in the back with the drums and everything, it's a way to trick the fans. And then Ace was the last to leave. And then I think Peter came back, but for a Kiss Alive 4 or something. But it's just like when Tommy fully replaced Ace, then the crowd should have been like, boo, boo. Maybe the crowd didn't do that because they already saw the reunion. They already saw the big 5-year reunion with Peter, Paul, Gene, and Ace. They already saw it for 5 years. So I guess the Kiss fans at the time were just saying, well, I guess this is just the new Kiss. But Gene and Paul aren't going to realize it's a horrible decision unless there's boos from the crowd at the concerts. But that's kind of weird, right? How do you pay money for going to a Kiss concert, knowing what you're going to get, and then you go to the concert, and they're playing the songs you want, they're in costume, and even though Tommy and Eric are now there, it'd be kind of weird to boo. I mean, you spent all this money to go there, and I think the fans accepted it too much. There wasn't enough complaining. I mean, there was complaining, but Gene and Paul don't really care about what the internet says. And the internet isn't just the internet. That's just the world. I mean, it's just everybody. So it isn't just the internet. It's like Paul and Gene just wanted to make money from the average Kiss fan who don't even know that Peter and Ace aren't even there anymore. But it just became such an embarrassment for so long that they had no choice but to bring it up in interviews. And you can read magazines where Gene talks shit about Ace or Paul talks shit about Peter and all that. Anyway, I do love Gene and Paul for what they gave me, for what they gave the Kiss Army, despite my issues with the two of them. I mean, I do love Peter and Ace. I don't love Tommy and Eric, and I gave my reasons why. And another thing is, they're both, like people always say this about Tommy and Eric, and especially Tommy. Well, they're both good people. Okay, listen, here's the thing about someone being a good person, okay? I'm really preaching here now, all right? So everybody take notes. There's a lot of people out there that do really scummy things for a really long time, but they're nice to people. So, to me, that's not really a good person, is it? It's like if someone robbed a bank and they're like nice, they're like polite. That's kind of what Eric and Tommy are. They're not really good people, but it's like they're good people to the average people they meet, but it's like the fact that, but they don't have integrity. That's the thing. They're just nice to people. So people think that they're good people. So I think because of that reason, people like forgive Tommy and Eric for wearing the Catman and Spaceman makeup. There is no forgiveness. Just because you're nice, just because you're a nice person doesn't mean you should forgive them for what they did if they have zero remorse for it. The fact that Tommy and Eric did this for this long, it just goes to show that they don't have integrity as people. Like, they may have integrity in other areas of their life, but just because someone has commitment to a band, that doesn't mean that no matter what they do, as long as they're committed, then that means that they're a good person. No, it depends on what you do. Like, yes, it is about the band, right? At the end of the day. But it means more for your legacy as a person. It means more for the world. You need to have integrity. Tommy and Eric don't have Kiss integrity. They may have integrity with the people that they care about and they know, but when it comes to making money, when it comes to artistic integrity, music integrity, integrity as entertainers, Tommy and Eric do not have any integrity as entertainers. They are shameless. They have no fucks given, and they're just like, well, we're just gonna do it anyway. And that's not right. It's not right. Anyway, thanks for watching, Kiss Army. Let me know what you guys think. So, that's all I gotta say. Peace out.